Welcome to another episode of On the Road with the Freeman Diaries with myself, Sarah, one part of the Freeman trio. The other two being my husband, Brett, and our pet rabbit, Marshmallow, who is a fluffy, white, locked-eared, blue-eyed bunny that is more like a dog than a rabbit. Because he likes to go for walks on his lead and is litter trained and enjoys having cuddles all the time. He's currently just over there, chilling. When I was praying and thinking about what to share in this episode of On the Road with the Freeman Diaries, because so much happens like every single day to be able to share it with everyone, and I just want to make sure that I'm sharing the content that God wants me to, but also sharing the things that you want to hear about too. And there's just so many things, so many stories and stuff that I could share. But I think I'm going to share about the time that we were at Warrawong. Warrawong, I have since learnt, means go away in Aboriginal. Warrawong is a town near Wollongong on the coast of New South Wales. Wollongong is a surfy town, so surfers go there and stuff, which I totally understand why after going there. Great waves, like it's excellent if you were a surfer. And so we went there to Warrawong. At Warrawong, there's a free campground there that's in a car park that's on Crown land. And there are people that live there that are homeless, that live in their caravans or their buses or their motorhomes. They don't have anywhere else to go. They don't have a house. They're homeless. They live in their caravan. So people have been there for 8 years. It's a long time to live in a car park for. And yeah, people come and go from that place as well, so they don't stay there all the time. And so we went there and we got some prime real estate, which was like right on the waterfront, which was really beautiful. And we made a friend with the guy next to us called Shane. And he was awesome and lovely, and we had him over for dinner every night. And then on the last night that we were there, he had us over for dinner, which is really special. You know, especially when your home is your caravan, not a lot of people like understand like, oh, come over for dinner. Like they just expect like to go into your house and sit down and have a meal. But when you live in a caravan, like you normally just sit outside, rain, hail, or shine, and you have a meal together of whatever that looks like. And normally it's, nothing too fancy or crazy. And so we were there, but Shane was awesome, and shout out to Shane and God bless you, man. But I wanted to share about this little tiny thing that happened and that continues to happen. Is I went into the local shopping center because I needed to buy myself a new rash vest, like a top for swimming with. Because I was doing a lot of beach swimming and I had my other one for a while, so I needed a new one. And so I needed to know where the local sports store was within the shopping center. And because I hadn't been there before, it can be quite confusing. Like you can look on like your Google Maps and stuff, but sometimes it just doesn't help because it's multi-stories. And so I just like pretty much like every time end up just asking somebody where something is. And normally they'll just be like, oh yeah, it's just over here, and like point and tell you which way to go to get there and everything. This time was different. So I was walking and I saw this gentleman, and I just went up to him and I said, excuse me, sir, I am looking for the sports store, and he was like, oh yeah, it's just over here and around. Actually, I'm walking that way. Do you want to walk together? And I was like, okay, cool. So we're just walking together through the shopping center, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm from Adelaide. He's like, oh yeah, I've been to Adelaide before, and oh, that's a nice part of the world. I feel like everybody says that, doesn't matter where you live. You know, like if somebody says, oh, I live in Blacktown, I'm not going to be like, oh, that's a nice place to live. Anyway, depends on the parts of Blacktown you're from. Anyway, only people from Blacktown understand that. Which I'm not from Blacktown, I've just visited there. So, don't even know why that's relevant to today's video, but anyway, just feel like everybody always says Adelaide's really nice. Well, because it is, so don't move there, okay, because it's too nice, so stay somewhere else. And so we're just talking, and he's just telling me about like Warrawong and how long he's lived there for, and And then I was like talking about me and stuff. Like, it really wasn't that much of a long time. Like, I might have been like 3 minutes or something, but I don't know, we just had a really good chat with one another. And then he like took me to the sports store and he's like, oh, here it is. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Thanks, man. That's great of you. I didn't say God bless or anything like that. Like, that was it. So I went to the sports store. They didn't have what I wanted. So then I ventured to the supermarket, to Coles, and was in Coles and just walking around doing the shopping and stuff, as I often do, because we've got to eat. And I was, just walking around. I got to the checkout. I went through the checkout and I was outside. And I normally just like put everything in my backpack and stuff, and I was just standing there working out how to get back out of the shopping center to then walk back to the campground and everything. And a guy comes over and he's like, oh, hello. And I was like, oh, it's you. Hello. And he's like, oh, yes, I saw you in Coles and stuff. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, And then he was like, I noticed that you have a cross around your neck, this little cross here, right? And I'm like, oh, yes, I do. And he's like, it's good that you're on the right side. And I was like, oh, thanks. He's like, I have a faith too in Jesus, and we have to stick by him, don't we? And I said, oh, yes, we do, because life with Jesus is a lot easier. And he's like, it sure is, sister. And he just like he was just like, I just want to encourage you, like, what you're doing is great and it's awesome, and to keep going. And I'm like, thank you. That's really kind of you to speak those words. That's really, really nice. And he said, God bless you. And I said, God bless you too. And we headed our separate ways. There's been so many times when I've been in shopping centers and there's been very similar stories to that. Like, I was trying to find Kmart one day and I just felt like I was walking around in circles because there's so many different rabbit warrens within those big supermarkets. And I just walked over to this lady. I didn't see that she was on the phone because of like this, earbuds and stuff. And I just walked over and I said, excuse me. And she went, oh, hello. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were on the phone. And she's like, oh, no, it's okay. And I'm like, I'm just wondering where Kmart is. Like, am I walking anywhere in the right direction? And she's like, no, it's just over there. And then I said, oh, thank you. God bless you. And she's like, God bless you too. And I was like, oh, that's so lovely. But sometimes I'll walk up to people to ask them where to go, and I'll be like, oh, I'm looking for whatever, so-and-so, I'm visiting. And they'll just be like, oh, it's over there. And you're like, oh, thank you. Thanks for your help. Or they'll be like, oh, this way. Or I was in Toronto, and I was walking down the main street, and I was looking for a certain shop, and I couldn't find it. And so I walked over to this lady, because you're in a new place, right? It's not like you're in the same place all the time. Like, it's a different place all the time. And so this lady was walking past, and I just said, oh, excuse me, I'm looking for this shop. And she's like, oh, yeah, it's just down here. Let's walk that way. And so we're just walking that way. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm from Adelaide and whatever, I'm visiting. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm from so-and-so, and this is what I'm doing. And you have a good chat with them. And then I got to the place, like she led me to the place that we're going, that I asked to go to. And I said goodbye. And she said, Happy Easter. So it's just about really taking the time to chat and listen to them. And one time I was in another store, and I was sitting there waiting for something, and I was just sitting, and the next thing, this gentleman came over, because I was wearing my dad's CFS hat, Country Fire Service hat, and he came over and he was like, oh, that looks like the fire brigade, but I don't recognize the logo. And I said, oh, it's the Country Fire Service in South Australia. And he's like, oh, I used to be part of the Country Fire Service here in New South Wales. And then he just starts talking about that, and you could really tell that he was lonely, so I'm just sitting there, and he's just like jabbering on about stuff that's happening in his life and sharing about things that I'm like, I don't know why you're telling me that. Like, why are you telling me these intimate details about your life? But you could tell that he really, really just wanted someone to talk to, because he walked over to the lady that was serving him and was just having a good old chat with her too. And it was just being present to listen to what he had to say that made all the difference in his life. And he walked away happier because I had taken the time to listen to what he had to say, because we had something in common. And just to listen, that's the key word there, is to listen to what he had to say about what was going on in his life. I could have just got up. I could have just got what I ordered once it happened and then left, but I didn't. I just sat there and I listened. You know, I could have just walked as soon as the lady got me to where I wanted to go. I could have just said, okay, bye, and walked straight in, but I didn't. I spent those extra moments to connect and to be present and to thank her and wish her a happy Easter at the same time. Say happy Easter to her. There are so many people out there that are lost and confused and sad and lonely and really want somebody to listen to them. Not to talk to them or tell them what to do, but just to listen to them, to make them feel loved and accepted. And that's what Brett and I really hope to do through this journey of traveling around Australia, is to do that and spend that time with those people that God brings along our path. And we're very prayerful in consideration of who we talk to and what we talk to about. It's just really about being open, because you don't know what other people are going through in their lives, and you don't know what type of impact just being there for them will be. So I will see you for another episode of On the Road with the Freeman Diaries. Again, God bless.